Welcome to Thursday's Market. SITREP here at Top Gun Options. Matthew Buckley, my call sign is Whiz, and here you go, folks. You just can't keep this market down. You smoke the hopium and you hold your nose as the rally continues. World stocks hit record high for the 10th consecutive day in no vol nirvana. That's a great headline. You can't keep this market down. Now, we got a little bit of a rattle earlier, folks, and I'll brief you why. ECB, there's Mario Draghi. He's kind of the Janet Yellen. He's the head of the ECB, so he's their Janet Yellen. Look at this. This dude went from he was a hawk. Remember a couple weeks ago? Let me pull up the yes. So in here is a couple Donald Trump Jr. ridiculousness, and there's a Mario Draghi. We kind of sort of might be thinking about last call or taking away the punch bowl from all the drunks in Europe on liquidity. They went full freak mode, right? I called it a taper tantrum. You remember we had taper tantrums when Ben Bernanke did that to us. Kind of sort of maybe thinking we might end quantitative easing. Holy crap, it's like the scene in the movie Airplane when she tells him all the bad news and the guy goes, "Are you telling us everything?" And she goes, "Well, we're also out of coffee." And then everybody goes apeshit at that point. So we got a little bit of a head fake here. He says they'll talk about it maybe in the fall, but there's no specific date. So we have the Fed unwinding their balance sheet in the fall, and we have Mario potentially last calling it in the fall, or maybe kind of sort of thinking about last call in the fall. So it's going to be an interesting fall. How about that? So ECB keeps their rates and quantitative easing unched, and they're ready to increase QE in size and duration. So there was a little bit of confusion in the morning trading. It was a, wait, what did he say? Did he say this? And then now we kind of figured it out here. Bank of Japan also Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda also getting on record this morning or last night or however time zones work. It's like putting instant coffee in the microwave. You might go back in time. So he boosted hopes for a little bit more stimulus over there. But this is insane, guys. This rip your face off rally I said should end, and we should chop sideways, especially as we chop through earnings. But hey, man, I'm glad Monday in our weekly options live trade brief, I said, you know what? That's it, pushing back from the table a little bit, and I'm going to watch. And that's sometimes the best trade of all. If the market or a stock or an ETF or an index ain't doing what you think it should do, that's the time to push back, man. You got to count the cards. You got to get a count for the deck before you sit down and put any more money. We also had a little bit of a hiccup this morning when we heard that Mueller is expanding his probe into Trump business transactions. So the dollar took a hit and stock slammed. The S&P went from being up, a half to down 1. The stocks were slammed. Look at the VIX. It's up 1%. Folks, you can't make this stuff up, man. We're below 10. 1, 2, 3, 5 days, almost all week this week. The VIX is below 10. Of course, a broken clock is right twice a day, guys, and we'll be right eventually. Something's going to happen to freak this market out in the next couple weeks. I don't know what it is. I brief you strategically on it. It could be, the China trade. They get Trump does a 4 a.m. tweet about, all right, now you're a currency manipulator. We're booting all your students out of our universities unless you do something on North Korea. Could be a Russia. Could be an Iran thing. It's obviously not going to be a central bank because Janet and Mario both went from hawks a couple weeks ago to doves. So again, smoke the hopium and we go higher. It just can't get any worse for Chipotle, can it? Rats fell from the ceiling at a Chipotle in Dallas in a rare and isolated incident. So it's on camera. You want to look at who's, just when you think you're having a bad day. Anybody long Chipotle, look at that chart. So is Chipotle going out of business? No, I doubt it. I mean, but it's like airline crashes. Bad news comes in threes. We get one more bad news story. The people getting sick in Virginia or wherever it was, norovirus. You don't want that type of pain or wish that on anybody. And then rats out of the ceiling. We'll get one more news cycle out of Chipotle, and then maybe you get bullish on it. You just buy some calls and throw them in the bottom drawer. This is creepy. Yesterday in my accelerated retirement live trade brief at 1, made another historic call. I reshuffled my Olympian financials. Goldman was my gold medalist, JP Morgan, and then my bronze was Morgan Stanley. Booted Goldman Sachs to bronze. JP Morgan's gold, and silver is Morgan Stanley. Then the Wall Street Journal comes out with this article. Whoever the reporter is at the Journal, that's also a TGO member. Thanks for your patronage, man. Goldman's partner stake in the company slips below a regulatory threshold that had mandated public disclosures. What did I say yesterday, AR members? I said Goldman, listening to their conference call, they sounded like they were still a private company. Somebody asked a question about, like, hey, you know, your share buybacks, blah, blah, blah. They're like, we're not going to tell you about that or when or how. Or it's like, did they just say that? You're a public company. You have to do that. So check this out. It sounds like rats are leaving a sinking ship here. And Dick Beauvais, legendary investor, yesterday on Comedy Central said what? Lloyd Blankfein needs to resign. So guys, we're going to talk Tuesday in the PLTB. I don't know, man. My strategic mindset and my commit criteria are still okay on Goldman Sachs, but I'm going to be doing some thinking over the weekend about maybe sticking with JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley. Went to get long Morgan Stanley, or I did get long Morgan Stanley in the AR brief yesterday, so I'm happy with that. But this is definitely worth an iron condor here, guys. We talked about this yesterday, the 2030, maybe 2015, out a couple weeks, because Goldman Sachs this is all starting to get it really, really interesting. If we don't see some good news out of Goldman Sachs soon, they might not even be my bronze medalist. So chew on that one, man. All my members should be subscribed to the Journal. It's the paper of record for Wall Street, guys. When this type of stuff is in there, this is. Well, I've actually been on the phone with buddies up in New York. They're like, wow, did you see that about Goldman in the Journal? So make sure if you get a chance to read this article. What did we get today? Some Philly Fed imploded. Look at that, man. The Philly Fed, what exit? Or no, it's Jersey. So Pat Stakes and Geno's imploded there. It's not necessarily good news. Weekly unemployment came in a little bit better. I don't think there's anything on our flight schedule for tomorrow on Friday. Nope, nothing on our flight schedule. So it should be a quiet Friday. I don't know if we're going to sell off into the close. I think we hang out. But again, it was a good call not to do any weekly options trade this week and just to sit here and watch the deck. And we just grind higher. But again, after we've had these kind of, here's the most, there's a kind of a chop sideways to down, pop. This is a chop sideways to down, pop off the 50-day. This one we actually hung out through the 50-day for a while. Something's got to give here, guys. We covered ad nauseum throughout the week that the number one buyer of the S&P 500 year to date has been the S&P 500. It ain't hedge funds. It ain't the Fed. It ain't the plunge protection team. It is literally all these companies listening to Janet going, hey, money's cheap. Why don't you use it to buy back your own shares and increase your bonus, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO? That's what's going on here, folks. So that ends. They either run out of shares to buy or they run out of money to be able to borrow to buy their shares back. So I love our Jan 19 positions. Some of our front month positions are doing great. We're getting ready to go into tech earnings next week. So we'll see if this rally is going to continue or if maybe it's a sell on the news. But like we talked about earlier this week, Morgan Stanley upping Apple's price target to 182 in front of earnings is extremely odd. And who was it? UBS up in Amazon or something like that. The blue blood banks coming out and upping price targets before earnings, something Gordon Gekko-ish is going on there, but I'm going to dig into that some more. But all right, guys, I'm going to send out an urgent alert here in a little bit, taking a look at a couple potential trades to add to our urgent alert portfolio. Other than that, have a great rest of your day. Happy hunting. Make sure you hedge, and I'll be back with Friday's market wrap-up tomorrow. We'll see.